If you're a married federal employee planning to retire in the next 5 to 10 years, there are 7 conversations you and your spouse need to have, and most couples have had 0 of them. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what they are and why skipping even one can cost you. I'm Tom, a certified financial planner and the founder of GT Wealth, and I work specifically with federal employees and their spouses on retirement planning. I've sat in dozens of meetings where the pension was locked in, the TSP was solid, the date was circled to retire on the calendar, and 6 months later, one of them called me and said, "Tom, this is not what we expected." The biggest retirement problems rarely come from a bad investment or a missed checkbox on a retirement form. They come from life decisions and money decisions being made separately. So today I'm going to walk you through those 7 conversations, and as we go, just notice which ones you've actually had and which ones you've just assumed you've agreed on. Here's what I see happen. A federal employee does everything right. They know their FERS pension number. They've been contributing to the TSP. They've looked up their Social Security estimate, but they've never sat down with their spouse and talked through what retirement is actually going to look like as a household. And when they finally retire, they discover they were each picturing something very different. These 7 conversations are how you prevent that from happening. Most federal employees think about retirement is picking a date. I'll hit my MRA. I've got 30 years and then I'm done. MRA is your minimum retirement age, and for most FERS employees, that's between ages 55 and 57, depending on the year you were born. But the more important question is, what does that date mean for the two of you at home? Are you both retiring at the same time? If you're both feds, who goes first? And is everyone genuinely okay with that plan? Because here's what I see go sideways. One spouse retires. There's no alarm clock anymore. They play pickleball in the morning. They have coffee with their friends, while the other is still up early. They're on the road fighting traffic and coming home exhausted. Individually, both decisions make sense. Together, that gap creates a lot of strain before there's ever a financial problem. And the money side follows this. If one of you retires early, do you start pulling from the TSP sooner than you planned? Does the working spouse stay longer just for the health insurance? Does that decision push your Social Security timing in a direction that doesn't actually make sense? So the first conversation is, are we genuinely aligned on when each of us retires? And what does the household look like during that transition? Not just the person who gets to walk out the door. Most couples don't argue about income numbers. They argue about what that income is supposed to cover. One of you is thinking traveling, maybe even going to Europe while you're still healthy, while the other is thinking more simple, quieter, and stay close to home kind of things to do, right? One of you pictures more dinners out and hobbies, and the other pictures keeping expenses down. Your retirement also has to fund healthcare. As a federal employee, you may be able to keep your FEHB coverage into retirement, which is a significant advantage. But have you looked at what premiums and out-of-pocket costs actually do to your monthly cash flow, especially as you move into Medicare age? Retirement has to fund travel, if that matters to you. It also has to fund your lifestyle. And here's something I also see constantly. People expect their spending to drop in retirement. What actually happens is a shift. You stop spending to support your job and start spending to support your life. And then there's housing. Staying put or you downsizing, moving closer to family. One decision here can completely reshape your TSP withdrawal plan and your tax situation for years. The second conversation upgrades the question from how much do we need to what kind of retirement are we actually trying to fund. Most federal employees spend 30 years thinking about what they're retiring from. Far fewer spend real time thinking about what they're retiring to. What do you want your weeks to actually feel like? How much time do you want to spend together, and how much do you each of you want your own space and your own routines? That's a real question. And a lot of couples don't answer it until someone's been home for 6 months and the friction is already starting to build up. If there's a list in your head of things you want to do while you're healthy, have you said them out loud to your spouse? Have you written any of it down? Because from what I've seen, the things that never leave your head almost never happen. And then life tends to fill the calendar for you. The third conversation is about moving retirement out of the escape from work category and into the "we actually designed this together" category. Now you might be thinking, Tom, that all sounds great, but we don't want the same things. And guess what? That's okay. And it's completely normal. The issue isn't the disagreement. The issue is retiring before you've worked through it. I've been in meetings where one spouse tells me they want to travel for the next 10 years, and the other spouse in the same meeting says they'd rather stay local to be with the grandkids. And they're both looking at me like I'm this referee in this situation. So here's 3 things that actually help here: compromise, independence, and trial runs. Compromise means finding where each of you can enjoy what you want to do without feeling steamrolled by the other person. Independence means agreeing that each of you has some space and some money for your own priorities without needing the other's approval. And trial runs mean testing the vision before you commit to it. If you want to go buy an RV and travel full time, great, go rent one for 2 weeks first and figure it out. If you want to travel to Florida, spend some time there in different seasons before you write the check and move down there. So test it out before you build your entire retirement around a life you'd never actually experienced. Now let me zoom out for a second. The goal isn't to have the world's prettiest spreadsheet. The goal is having money to support a life that actually feels meaningful to the both of you. The pension matters, your TSP strategy matters, the tax plan matters, but they only matter because of what they allow you to do. Spending time with people you care about, doing the things that matter to you, and not lying awake wondering if you're going to run out of money. When you see it that way, all of these conversations stop being abstract and they become the foundation for every financial decision you're about to make. Here's where the federal system adds some very specific complexity. Take your pension and inflation. Under FERS, if you retire before 62, your pension generally does not receive cost of living adjustments until you hit 62. So if you retire at 57, that pension check stays flat for 5 years while groceries, insurance, and everything else quietly gets more expensive. If you and your spouse want to spend more in those early years on travel and family, but you haven't factored in that fixed income isn't growing, you can end up putting much more pressure on the TSP than you expected. Here's a simple example. Say your first pension at retirement is $4,000 a month. At 3% annual inflation over 5 years, the purchasing power of that check drops to roughly $3,450 in today's dollars by the time you hit age 62. That's a $550 a month gap your TSP now has to fill before you've even touched the question on how to keep your TSP growing in retirement. This is the trap that makes you feel cash strapped in year 5, even though the spreadsheet said you'd be fine. Then there's survivor planning. If something happens to one of you, does the other have enough income to maintain the life you planned? For federal employees, this isn't just about life insurance. It's about the survivor benefit election you make on your pension, which permanently reduces your monthly check in exchange for continuing income to your spouse. It's about how TSP withdrawals work for the surviving spouse, what happens to Social Security, and whether FEHB coverage stays intact. A retirement that works well for 2 people can become shaky for one of you if those decisions weren't made with both of you in mind. And then there's the TSP and taxes. Let's say you want to do a major home renovation or maybe take a big trip early in retirement. On your statement, you have the money, but if you pull a large lump sum from the TSP in a single year, you can easily spike yourself into a higher tax bracket than you're used to. That withdrawal suddenly costs a lot more than the statement balance suggested, and once you take it out, it's out. There's no putting it back into the account. So everything is connected. Travel decisions affect withdrawal timing. Housing decisions affect your taxes in that specific year. Survivor choices affect which pension option you select and how you structure your health coverage. And this is usually the moment in a conversation where someone looks at me and says, I see now why we can't just solve these one at a time. Everything has to be looked at together. A lot of people think we'll get serious when we're a year out. The problem with waiting is that every year you delay, you are giving up options. If you're 8 to 10 years out and you start now, you have time to adjust your spending, make smarter TSP contribution choices. You can address debt or housing decisions before you're on a fixed income, And you can build the retirement you actually want instead of hoping it fits. If retirement is tomorrow, there's certainly still value in doing some planning, but there are far fewer levers left to pull. Now, if you are in your last decade of your federal career, this is the window to get the planning done. So let me bring this all together. The biggest retirement mistake I see federal employees make is preparing the paperwork and preparing the money, but never preparing the actual life they're about to live together. The 7 conversations are when each of you retires and what that means for the household, what retirement actually needs to pay for, what you're retiring to, how to handle it when you want different things, keeping money as a tool, the federal specific rules that connect all of these decisions, and starting sooner than you think you need to. If you listen to this and realize there are 1 or 2 of these areas you've mostly assumed rather than actually discussing, that's completely normal. The good news is you can now start to plan. If you want help taking all of this from having a conversation to an actual plan, click the link in the description and book a federal retirement blueprint call. We'll map out the biggest risks and opportunities specific to you and your spouse's federal retirement. And if you're not quite ready for that yet, that's completely okay. Then watch this video right here on TSP withdrawal options when you retire from federal service. It'll walk you through how the money actually comes out of the TSP so you can see how these conversations turn into a real income plan. So click here to watch, and I'll see you over there.